Hi, Rich Pig with Personal Wings. The topic of this video involves an accident this past weekend in San Diego at Montgomery Field. I just returned from flying around my 206, doing some stalls, having fun, hanging out at the FBO, talking to the line folks. Then observed a Cirrus, an SR20, go along the runway. Hadn't touched down yet. Fairly fast with pitch oscillations. And then as I watched him, I said, boy, I sure hope he goes around. After, I don't know, 5 or 6 oscillations, I saw him impact the ground. In fact, right before that, I knew he was going to hit the ground. So I turned to the line guys at the FBO, who were awesome, and I said, hey, we got to go. And we grabbed a 4x. I said, grab a radio, grabbed a radio, saw him hit, big plume of dust, and the plane start to slide in the dirt. So grabbed the guys, grabbed the radio, talked on the radio, got right up to the edge of this taxiway airport. Right then I heard the ground says, hey, Montgomery Airport is closed. Told ground, this is Rich Pickett. I'm at Crown Air Vehicle, and I need to go to the site. They said, you're clear to go. So went across, stopped in between the runways and got a hold of ground again. We had 2 runways, 28 left and right, and I made it to the crash site. So when I got to the crash site, there was fuel being spilled, so I was worried about fire, but walked around that and then went and tried to help the pilot, the sole occupant. So I rendered some first aid to him, held him, etc. I won't go into all the details of that, but try to give him aid. And then waiting, of course, for our fire department and first responders. So I was there probably by the time it impacted within 2 minutes, maybe. And I used to be a police officer and detective. And so I'd gone to a number of fatal accidents and some other crimes and so forth. So for me, my first reaction was just to go and help and do what I could. So I was there. It took a while for our fire department to get there. They responded as fast as they could. They had awesome department. But one of the issues is they couldn't get through the gates. So we had gates on that side of the airport, but they couldn't get through the gates. So they cut the lock, made it through the gate, and came and helped and relieved me to take care of the pilot. So I'm not going to speculate on the cause because I think that would be premature. Did my report, photograph the site, help the FAA, help the fire department secure the airplane safely, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then submitted my information, and I always believe while you can get some idea what causes accidents at the beginning, you know, sometimes pilots are wrong, sometimes people are wrong. You'll see people on YouTube that say, oh my God, I know exactly what happened with this accident. You know, this is exactly what happened. Well, like, really? Until you get all the data, you really can't make those assumptions. All it is pontification for the sake of more airtime. So I like to reserve. I have my opinions on it. There's some things I think that happened, but it would be unfair of me and also my background as a police officer to jump to conclusions before all the facts are in. So NTSB, the FAA, the other interested parties such as Cirrus, etc., will figure that out. But you know, my heart's out to the family of the pilot, being one of the last people that spent time with him, trying to comfort him and so forth. But the interesting thing from some of the takeaways from this, right? I always try to think of what's positive. Is there's several things that I noticed, right? There's a lot of the fire departments, not their fault. They don't know about airplanes, right? They don't know about fuel types. They don't know about wings. They don't know about the rockets and the Cirrus. They don't know how to disconnect things. So while the patient was being tended to by the EMTs, I helped the fire department. I crawled underneath the fuselage with one of the firefighters to locate the battery cables because I thought, hey, we need to do that. I'd already turned off the fuel. Got in there, turned off the fuel because I know Cirrus has owned one for a long time. Fuel magnetos, even though the magnetos were somewhere in the field and master, right? But an important thing on aircraft accidents is you know, as pilots, you can do a lot of stuff in the cockpit, but that doesn't necessarily mean you've reduced the risk, right? If you turn off mags, sure. Of course, the engine was gone anyway, so it didn't matter too much. It was so smashed. You turn off the battery master, maybe. But that doesn't always solve the problem, right? Because what happens is, we all know, like for example, the Cirrus, I'll use this 206 as an example. They have a master control unit in here. It has a lot of electronics. When you flip that battery switch in your cockpit, you're just activating a small relay in here. There's still a tremendous amount of electricity to this, which is also a safety hazard. So that's one of the reasons it crawled underneath the fuselage with the firefighter, located both the negative and the positive cables, and we cut them. So I said, hey, we got to cut here and here. Bingo. But there's 2 batteries, right? There's actually 3 batteries if you look at it with the Cirrus, but there's at least 2. And in fact, in the back, there's 2 12-volt batteries that give us 24 volts as a standby. We'll talk about that later. So it's important to be able to cut those. And the fire departments won't always know about the different characteristics of an airplane. So we did that, and then fuel, right? I'd seen the burst tank on the right wing, so I knew that was draining into the soil. They asked me if it was an issue with fire hazard over there. I said no, because now it's just gone. But the left still had a lot of fuel in it. So he said, how do we get it out? I said, hey, let's just siphon it out. So took off the cap, put a fuel siphon in there, siphon it out. Much safer than trying to cut through a tank or something else like that, but we wanted to mitigate the risk and get that done. So siphoned it out, left the cap off for a little bit, and then later on I put the cap back on. And then I said, we've got a rocket. The rocket, what's the rocket? I said, we have a parachute. So the parachute had not deployed. The lines that come out on the side of the fuselage had pulled out just like they're supposed to. The safety pin was pulled out of the caps handle, 45 pounds, pull that down, it activates, but the caps handle was still there, so we still had a risk there. So we went around to the empennage. We opened up a side panel. I said, of course, I want to turn off the ELT so it doesn't blanket out all the other emergency frequencies. So pull out the ELT and disconnected that, turn that off, showed them what the ELT was, showed them where the rocket was. The top of the thing was open a little bit on top of the fuselage, but that's just because of the lines. And then proceeded to go through the process of at least trying to figure out how to make that rocket secure. And then we stopped because then we determined that it was going to become an NTSB. People were away from the aircraft. It was okay to safely stop and not touch that aircraft anymore. So we took care of the immediate surroundings. So in thinking about this, right, I said, how can we help? I'm not a doctor, so I can't say if a faster response would have helped the sweet pilot who was in there. I don't know, but there are some things that we can do as pilots in the aviation community to help reduce some of the risks and improve the safety of how you get help after an accident, especially airport accident, right? There's a lot of, sadly, airplanes go off the end of the runway excursions for one reason or another. A lot of them are not injury accidents, but nonetheless they could be, or in this particular case became a fatal in terms of he was still in the air and then impacted the ground. And we have other ones. So thinking about there, I'm going like, why couldn't they get through those gates? Why did they have to cut the locks? They're right across the street from the airport. Why couldn't they go through 2 other gates? Why couldn't they have done that? And they said, they don't have access. They're like, why don't you have access? And finally they cut the cables and came in. But while I was there, I knew that there was a delay. So one of the things that we need to do as an aviation community, especially with pilots, and I mean pilots and not just pilots, but all the people involved in aviation, is help our community airports assess how it would be best to provide emergency services. I'm not saying I'm an expert at it, far be it, but I have done enough accidents before as police officer and other things like that I know that time is critical. When I'm sitting there and holding somebody and I can't get help, EMT help quickly, that just increases that risk. I think it's important to do that. And I think it's important for pilots to meet with their airport authorities, their airport councils, etc., and the local fire department. Say, hey, how can we help you guys, right? First of all, you want to make sure they have access. And I know you don't want to create another emergency by responding to emergency. I totally know that, because that was, we were always careful as police officers not to have another accident on the way to an accident. And the same thing here. We were racing across the dirt in this 4x, just right across the dirt, right? And I told the guys, hey, you don't want to have an accident on the way to the accident. So we were careful when we got there on the way. But you have to be careful. But we do need to make make it so that it's easier for our first responders, whether they're ambulance, police, firefighters, etc., to be able to get to the airport facilities and on the grounds as soon as they can. We don't want to hear, well, you know, the best gate is somewhere else. Why? Well, that's what we've agreed upon. With whom? When they need to be able to have ready access to the entire area of the airport. It just makes sense. Because think about it. Once there's an accident, the airport's closed, right? So once the airport's closed, there's not supposed to be any operations on the airport, flight operations. So now emergency vehicle access should be able to access it pretty easily and safely. So what we have to do is make sure that easy part I just mentioned, we have to make sure that they have ready access to be able to get to all aspects of the airport. So that's one thing, and I'm going to work on that at our airport and other places in honor of the pilot who didn't quite make it. The other thing we want to be able to do, right, is I said, and they were just, firefighters were awesome. They, you know, I can't say enough about them and what they do and the first responders in general. I said, how can I help them? So I've offered my help to identify aircraft, different kinds of aircraft, turbines, pistons. I fly a lot of them, flown over 110 makes and models. I've flown over 400 aircraft to give them some ideas of airplanes and different ones. And I'm also going to work with a friend who's also offered to help because he had done some of that before as well. So because what we want to be able to do is make them familiar with aircraft and how to respond, what to do. And as pilots, we're probably one of the best authorities to talk about them, especially if you couple it with mechanics, right? The technicians, the A&Ps, et cetera, at your airport that are quite familiar with airplanes, in many cases a lot more than we are mechanically. But hey, what's the difference between a high wing and a low wing? What's the difference? Where is fuel stored in these airplanes? Where are the fuel lines in general, right? What about the CAP system, the BRS, the ballistic recovery systems that you see in planes? What about the jets I fly? Where the batteries are? What kind of batteries? Some of them are lithium ion. Some of them are not, right? The Cirrus Vision jet is lithium ion. The new Latitude is lithium ion, which is an amazing battery, but it has some characteristics you have to watch out for. What's the different kinds of fuel? We have Jet A, which is diesel, right? Translated to diesel to the firefighters, they know that. The 100 low lead, what's that? Well, that's like automotive fuel, right? So if we can help them understand what they have, they can make the environment safer for themselves and whoever they're trying to help. So I guess my sort of soapbox, I guess, on this is to try to encourage pilots and non-pilots who are in the aviation community to work with their local airports and work with their local first responders and see how we can help them. There's only a few airports, right, that the smaller GA ones that we operate, they have a fire department on the airport themselves. Most of them are adjacent. Ours is really close. Ours is just right across. It's within probably 50 feet. It's right across the street from the fence. Yet they couldn't go through those gates. So my encouragement is, and again, I don't profess to be an expert, is look around your community, see how you can help maybe these first responders help you, because you might be the one that I just saw crash. You may be the one that hit the ground and slid a couple of 100 feet, right? And is in an airplane, or your loved ones, or your families, or your friends, or whoever, even people you don't know, right? I didn't know the pilot. I just thought I just needed to help them. It didn't matter to me. So you want to do that, right? See how you can help them do that, as well as embark on what you could do on help them with aircraft. There are some good resources. I'm finding more just today. Cirrus has a great one called firstresponder.cirrusaircraft.com, and I'm going to look for other ones. Our son Tigre and I are going to try to put together some videos, probably supplement other ones that are out there, and try to build, and we've offered to help the San Diego Fire Department to be able to learn more about aircraft, and I'm looking forward to it. So anyway, I know it's kind of a somber subject, but I always try to look on the good sides. How can you benefit from some of these experiences? Just one of the reasons I do a lot of accident reviews and some accident investigations is that how can we learn to prevent this from happening? It'd be great if we could prevent this from happening at the beginning. Who knows? but I'm hoping that the NTSB and others will get an idea of what happened to this pilot's accident in the SR20. And then also if we can help make things safer for our aviation communities. This also leads me to another thing I think I'm going to work on, is emergencies, right? If I look at how we teach emergencies for most of the primary licenses, it's quite different than we teach for the jets. In the jets, we're teaching, what if you have flap failures? What if you have gear failures? What if you have this failure? What if you have that failure, right? What about electrical systems? Now we have all electronics. What happens when your PFD goes up? Blah, 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 all these different things. So I'm going to do a series of videos, just give you some ideas to think about on aircraft, especially with some of these new aircraft out there. And I'm sure there's tons out there on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, etc. We have accounts there too. But hoping that that might help the aviation community. So thanks for watching. I feel a little bit better even just making this video. It's been 2 days, and I try to compartmentalize things and look at the good side. I was flying last night, took a picture, and I thought, I know the pilot's name. I said, this is for you flying. So be safe out there. Help your communities, help yourself, and you know, if you like this, say like on the bottom, subscribe to our channel, because you'll be the first to know of when we come up with some videos, some additional safety videos. We also have a large number anyway on all different kinds of topics, from cleaning airplanes to flying jets with Tigre and I, but we hope this other one I just thought about today will be advantageous and keep everybody safe. So good night, thanks for watching.